Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Tetracast, RPG Site's weekly podcast. I'm your host, Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have Josh Torres,
Hello.
Adam Vitale,
Salutations.
James Galizio,
Hey, folks.
Mikhail Manani,
Hello.
and Chaman Wu.
How's it going?
First time having the full crew here in a while, so I think that's pretty cool. We were recording this in the middle of July, and we'll just kind of get right into it. So, the August, September, October release schedule is pretty crazy, as we all know and have discussed. So we have a lot of things on our plate. People, planning for those upcoming busy months. July is kind of like our last little reprieve before that, before the deluge hits. But what we're going to be talking about today is a big release that is kind of on our radar for sure. That did release in Japan this week, and that is I'm going to call it Kyoto Xanadu. I don't know if James, do we know if what its localized title will be? I forget if that was
Kyoto
announced.
Xanadu, the Blooming Phantom.
That rings a bell. Okay, so we'll talk about it, but that about the release status of that game. It released in Japan, so I know James and Chow specifically have started it, and others might have watched other people play it. And I think we'll just kind of get right into it. So I'm not the best person to tee this up because I've not been playing it. So I'm going to hand over the microphone off to James and Chow, and then Josh and Mikhail can chime in as the conversation flows about the release of Kyoto Xanadu. James, I know you've been putting a handful of time into this. You've been sharing some impressions on social media. And again, this is specifically for the Japanese release. There is a Steam listing, but it does not support English officially out of the box. So I'll leave that. I'll leave the tee up there at that point. So James, your time with Kyoto Xanadu so far, and kind of like an import impressions first look.
So I think the thing to start with is that I did not like Tokyo Xanadu. Not a big fan of that one. I think it's very bland. I think it doesn't have enough of its own identity. But I was actually always excited for a follow-up because I was like, okay, you didn't have your own identity for the first one, but you're kind of forced to like get an identity the second time around. And I can tell you, like, that Kyoto Xanadu there's a lot of modern Falcomisms in the gameplay loop, but taken as a full package and as a vibe, it is a very different game from most of what Falcom has put out the last, like, 15 years. In a lot of ways, it does remind me more of, like, a PSP game they would have put out in, like, 2011 or something.
What's the setup like? Like, so does this relate any way, shape, or form to Tokyo Xanadu? What should people be expecting jumping into this one? Do they need to have played Tokyo Xanadu before it?
I would say no, because when I played through it, it's like, okay, they borrowed similar terminologies, but so far I have not seen a Tokyo Xanadu reference in this game so far.
That being said, the game doesn't even try to hide that there's some fuckery afoot. Because, like, even from the very beginning, it's clear there's something going on, and I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop there, but it's like there's clearly some sort of connection that will be made, like, apparent, but speaking of the first, like, 20 or so hours, it hasn't been directly important. So,
And what's the setup like? What's the story? Like, I know Tokyo Xanadu was more of a modern day setting. This one seems to be
it's
like,
modern as well.
okay. And then so what's going on in this one?
Maybe I'll start with the prologue. Basically, it starts with like this main character that's being chased by these mafia gang members, and eventually, like when he gets to like a dead end, it's like there's like a portal that comes out of nowhere and it sucks him into a different dimension, and that different dimension is a Xanadu, right? That's a similar term from the original game, and inside this spiritual world, he's able to draw a spiritual weapon, and then he's able to fight these monsters called greed in there, and then once he fought them out, he got knocked out, he passed out, and then somebody took him back and basically gave him an offer, because he's basically the reason why he's being chased by his mafia is like he stole a crap ton of money from them, and this person that rescued him basically offered him, it's like you have to transfer into this school because their purpose is to get rid of the Xanadu kind of thing, right? So that's kind of
Kurosaka Academy.
yeah.
Okay.
And not to spoil Tokyo Xanadu, but that was kind of a similar, based on what I'm hearing, similar premise in that there's sort of like these, like alternate dimensions or versions of the world that some people like are knowledgeable about and some people can access and some people can't. And there's like, of course, monsters and things. So similar, it seems like a similar sort of framing in a new setting.
Yeah, it's a little bit different here for like a few key reasons. So the reason that he's being forced, or well, not forced, coerced to attend this academy is for a few reasons. One, it like 1,200 years in the past, the whatever the source was for Xanadu in Kyoto was basically all coalesced into the Kurosaka Great Labyrinth, which is directly on top of Kurosaka Academy. And the thing with that is that, and the reason why the school exists is that for reasons unknown, the only people that can explore this labyrinth are people that are not adults yet. And because Kyoto is in a situation where you sometimes get these entrances to Xanadu that pop up outside of the labyrinth, but for the most part, it's condensed and like stabilized underneath that academy. There's all sorts of different like organizations and whatnot. They're using this as an effort to better explore that alternate world.
And when you're referring to the protagonist, it's not a blank slate protagonist. Like it's like I believe the
No,
protagonist name is like Rei Kamiya.
right.
Yeah.
I actually think this guy awesome.
He's a very different protagonist from pretty much anything else that
He gives you a
Falcom
very
has.
different impression. Like
He's
first he's like so badass. The next moment he seems like a complete clown, and then like later on, it's like, wait a minute, he 180 this entire impression on me. I'm like, what?
so. I think the best way to describe Kamiyare, which is his name, is to kind of directly compare him to Ko from Tokyo Xanadu. I'm going to ask everyone that's played Tokyo Xanadu in this call, do you remember a single thing about Ko's character arc? Because I don't.
No. I even replayed it like a year and a half ago. And I still don't remember shit.
I remember he's a very straight laced kind of character.
He was kind of like a, gotta get this over with, what a drag,
Yeah.
this is, I'll just, what have I gotten myself into, sort of thing.
He was very bland, very bland. He didn't really, until the very ending, he didn't really have a character, I feel like. Ray is the exact opposite. He is 110% confident in what he is doing. He always has a plan. He's very, very confident. Like, very, very confident. I think that's like the number one thing is that in everything he does it with full confidence and cocky to an extent. But
I think from my impression of him is I'm not sure anyone watch a lot of anime like the Demon Misfit. He kind of reminds me of the main character of that anime.
Oh,
Where everyone
okay.
kind of underestimates him, and then he comes back. It's like, hey, you thought you'd defeat me, but hey, I got like this 10 different backup plans. And then you're like, everyone's
It's
like, what
basically
the hell?
overpowered protagonist, type
But
of
he's
deal.
not.
But
But he's not acting overpowered. I think
Mm.
like the first time he goes to school, he basically gives the impression that he's the school clown, and now everyone's underestimating him because everyone thinks he's the school clown.
okay.
so it basically what he did is and since he transfers to the academy like halfway through the year, like it's at the beginning of September, he transfers. Obviously, in Japan, school year starts way before that. He decides to deliberately kind of not showcase how much spiritual power he actually has, and literally try to pretend that he's like barely qualified to explore Xanadu, and just to see how people would treat him, like treat someone that was at like the bottom of the totem pole. So it's like, hey, here's how people really act when they think that when shit doesn't matter, and basically you go from there.
Yeah, look, it definitely has like some of those tropes that you exhibit in like other popular like, Japanese media, right? Like you have like Mahoka, and then you mentioned Chao. Academy, where like you have a protagonist that's very confident in their abilities and they have the skills to back it up, but because of the circumstances that they put themselves in, they deliberately like kind of hinder themselves just to get a scope of the situation, to get a more accurate scope of like, okay, what are the people like here? But there's obviously a societal hierarchy, but I would like to see it from the bottom up rather than looking down.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Interesting.
He's a little bit of a little shit, but I think the more I'm playing it, the more I realize that his worldview is people should be free to live their lives how they want without the shackles of the expectations foisted upon them. They should be able to feel free to live how they want. And that's why he's so like laissez-faire with how he acts, is because you could read it originally I was like, this dude's kind of narcissistic, but the more he played, it's like, no, it's not that. It's literally just that he's not going to have anyone control how he lives his life, but at the same token, he fucking abhors anyone that would prevent others from being able to do the same. He's like very open-minded. There's a few things that I can't really talk about that especially by the end of chapter 2 that I feel like his character really starts to crystallize around there, and it's like, oh yeah, he was already like entertaining just because of how like confident he is, how he's, for lack of better terms, a bit of a Chad. But I'm really liking him. I'm really liking him. And if nothing else, it's like, oh, thank God, a different sort of protagonist than what Falcom usually goes for. I guess in a lot of ways, he's kind of like if like Ko was kind of like a foil to Reen, then Ray is kind of like a foil to Van, if that makes sense.
Okay. Mikhail, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, so what I want your comment on new Xanadu project that shows up when you start the game.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, I kind of talked around it, but like at the very beginning when they show the logo and title for the game, there's like a little bit of static, so it's clear something's going on, and there might be another title for this game that isn't just Kyoto Xanadu, the Blooming Phantom. But I don't know what that title would be yet. I'm not far enough in to say, and even if I wasn't going to say anything beyond that.
I was gonna say, even if you did, you wouldn't share
Yeah, I
it.
see.
Yeah, the
under,
only
like,
reason I'm mentioning
spoiler.
it here is it's literally something you see within the first 5 minutes of the game. So it's like kind of like the game sets that
what's up with that?
expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we discussed the protagonist a lot. I'm interested to hear about just the, you don't have to go deep into it because it's the first few chapters, but the kind of side cast, because I remember one of the interesting things about Tokyo Xanadu, like it has a lot of faults, but one of the interesting things that really stood out to me was that, like, let's say, like like a lot of the NPCs that you talked to had like their own distinct artwork for them,
Mhm.
little journal entry. It's like, wow, that they put a lot of work into fleshing out these NPCs. Like, they have their own quirks about them. I'm interested to like know about like both like the side cast, like the party members, and also do they continue that tradition with Kyoto Xanadu in terms of like the how far that Tokyo Xanadu went to like sort of fleshing out its NPCs.
So they do that to an extent. Like you'll actually be able to talk with. It's a Falcom game. You can talk with NPCs and you can see their actions like throughout the day, even when they're not directly interacting as part of the story. You can see that, and even like some NPCs that work mostly as like shopkeepers or like sort of like NPCs you deal with for specific facilities, you might run into them like outside of school hours in like Kyoto or whatever. The one thing I will say about presentation when it comes to Kyoto Xanadu is that I'd say that this game is at least half VN. And I'm not even just saying in the sense that it's like text heavy. A lot of the games like story elements, like there is like cutscenes, like full cutscenes. There is 3D like scenes that they show off, but a lot of this game is very deliberately using a VN aesthetic. Very deliberately. Even to the point where you have a glossary for terms that you can check, and it's like one of those like science adventure or other VN style glossaries where you have different categories, and you can check out the terms and read about them just to to refresh yourself if you forgot who the fuck is this, that sort of thing. As for the side characters, again, not super far in, but I do think it's interesting. In between classes and exploring Xanadu, you can use action points to raise your stats, but you can also use FP to choose which characters you want to interact with to kind of grow your bonds and eventually get access to their little vignettes that showcase more of their individual stories. And of course, that includes party members, but also includes other NPCs like your teacher, who is the funniest homeroom teacher in one of these stories, because it's like when you first talk with him, he asks how you like. So Ray knows him, like actually knows him. It's like, how does he know that? And then it turns out that he was bluffing because apparently there's this one person on their in-universe like version of Twitter that's like infamous for being a total fucking like doom scroller, just posting nothing but negative shit. And he was able to put 2 and 2 together between that dude's profile on whatever that social media app is and like the personal info listed there, and the teacher, and be like, "You're that guy."
Oh, okay.
It's like, are you a stalker or something? It's like, no, he posted on Twitter, or the version of Twitter.
And so, like, when it comes to like choosing who you hang out with, like sometimes when it comes to choosing between like actual party members that are playable and like NPCs, usually it feels like most other games would coerce you to spend that with other party members because there would be benefits like in gameplay to do that.
There is to an extent, because you can and it comes down to the way that you improve your stats primarily. It's like not really, I guess it is technically like a miniature card game, but so the way it works is that NPCs that you interact with, you can get support cards for that little card game that have different effects. They can make it so that they buff the amount of experience you get for your 3 virtues. It can make it so that you can change the cost of a different card. You can make it so that you can draw extra cards, all sorts of stuff like that. When you interact with party members, though, those aren't support cards; those are action cards. So those are the cards you actually normally use, and they do have different interactions. For example, with Fuka, your first party member you get, her cards are weaker by default than Ray's cards, but they cost a lot less and have the buff of, let's say you put down one of Ray's cards that has like 3 energy attached to it. So you put it in on something that let's say you need 4 energy to get the bonus for 1 course. You put down Rays that has 3. You have one from Fuka that's free to use, but doesn't add any energy, but it has the benefit of, if you play it on top of another card, it buffs the other card. So essentially, that Fuka card has 1 energy, but it's a free energy as long as you've already put a card down for one of those options, and there's stuff like that. And the more that you interact with these characters, the more that their cards improve. I think that's how it works. It might actually just be story progress. It's not entirely clear yet to me what gameplay benefits there are to these character moments. It could just be for the love of the game, just for the character moments, which I would not be opposed to that.
I was also gonna say, these cards are like one-time use, so you would basically need to like re-spend your time with these party members again if you want. Or
for the support cards. For the support cards, yeah. There's 2 ways. Yeah, there's 2 ways you can do it. And it's actually very funny because like the early purchase bonus is a support card for Leon, which is a virtual singer. So you might be thinking, hey, how do you replenish that card? You don't, unless you specifically go to, there's one shrine that you can spend action points on that will let you replenish any support card of your choosing, like one support card you're choosing. Otherwise, you're not able to replenish that one because it's not like you're speaking with Linon in person.
With these support cards,
using that card.
Okay, so with these support cards, and we're about to like go into the gameplay talk a bit portion of this, but are these support cards something you actively use like during the gameplay portion, or is it something that's like used to like boost like school activities or just
So the
School
school
activity.
activity stuff is tied to the gameplay. That was the thing.
okay? So
Because so the way it works is, and now this is like the core of the gameplay outside of the Xanadu stuff. Every day that's not like a weekend in the in-game calendar, you'll start off with your main classes, and it's what you'll be given is you'll have your concentration points. Very unfortunately, very unfortunate acronym, concentration points. And you're given a deck of 5 cards, and they're randomly generated, but you can actually make some adjustments the night before if you want to either like merge 2 lower level cards into a higher level one, or try to just get rid of some cards to just boost some of your like academic stats right out of the way, but also to kind of get them out of the loot pool. But anyways, you start the day, you have 5 cards to start with, and whatever support cards you have access to, you can also use, assuming you have the concentration points. You'll have 3 different classes, and you'll be told, first off, what academic stat it will buff, but also it'll show you how it interacts with the 3 virtues. And it'll show you if it has no impact, if it has a minor impact or a major impact. And then there will be a bonus underneath it. They'll show you if you invest this much energy, you'll get a permanent buff to something. It'll tell you it could either be to your stats, your actual stats, not just your virtues. It can be a greater increase to a specific virtue stat. It can also be like a big boost to the academics, but it's like that's the stuff you want to go for. So the whole thing is you have your cards that are available to you, you have your support cards, you have your energy, and you have to figure out what combination of cards to use to meet the expectations of each of these classes to best boost your stats. Then after that, it'll depend on whether or not it's a forced Xanadu day where you have to go into Xanadu and do side quests for these different facilities and explore Xanadu, or you'll get half your concentration points replenished, rounding up, and then you can go to any other extracurricular facilities, either the chapel, the gym, which is run by Doki,
nice.
or the research lab, and you can use additional cards and concentration points to basically get to level up those facilities and also get those additional buffs that if you meet the energy requirements. And the reason you want to do that is that the more you level up the gym, you'll gain new combat abilities. The more you level up the research lab, you gain access to more like medicines you can craft like near in the Xanadu lobby, and so on and so forth. So there's
So I was just gonna tell. Was it the free virtues? It's built to. It's like every time you level up, you get like a skill tree that you could use in it. So that's the reason why you want to build up your free virtue in the stats. So
yeah, it's like a huge skill tree, and it branches off depending on like, and you get new branches as you explore Xanadu because you can find these like heavenly mirrors that when you interact with them, it's like a reflection of your own soul, because the way that your abilities manifest is because of the strength of your soul and like the how you've nurtured it. You can find new abilities that will also add additional paths from those 3 virtues on the skill tree, and it actually becomes rather in depth with how you can like build your character down each path, even if like the broad strokes are probably going to be very similar for each person playing. It still has a lot of leeway for what you want to prioritize.
So I'm okay. I following you guys up to this point. I think to make it more digestible for like people listening in. So, is there like the day on the day to day of this game? Is it similar to like Persona in the sense like when you wake up, you attend classes? Do you have the
Yes,
option
it's
to
very,
then?
very similar to Persona. You can spend action points to go directly into Xanadu to explore Xanadu if you want to. There's just certain days where you're forced to, and honestly, it's best just to only go into Xanadu when you're forced to, because you're going to have plenty of time to do whatever you need to do that way, and you'd be better spent making use of your action points to either find new to find new areas. Because one of the things that you need to understand is that every chapter, the first time you interact with an area that requires action points to boost your virtues, you'll get a first time bonus, and it resets every chapter. So you're incentivized to do your rounds in every chapter, try to spend your time at different areas in the world, which it increases in scope every chapter, by the way, at least once a chapter, while also juggling everything else you want to do. So there's a lot of time management when it comes to this.
Okay. Interesting. And is there like, similar to Persona, I like, if people wanted to, let's say, go into Xanadu and only do a portion of it and then go out of it, are they? Can they split it up into chunks if they want to, or
Yes.
or just
So,
okay? And I assume there's
Xanadu
a way to just do it all in one go for that.
So you can't do it all in one go because there is the limitation of, as you're doing actions, as you're gathering stuff in Xanadu, you're getting a certain gauge filled up that represents how much your like protection is holding up. And once you reach past 1,000, if you go much further beyond that, your protection will break and you'll start accumulating the energies of Xanadu directly, which will have negative effects. So there's I guess the most obvious example of this is that each segment of Xanadu will have 6 statues that have been like cursed by like this dark spiritual energy. You can break the dark spiritual energy off, but a lot of it will accrue within you. And you really only have enough protection to be able to break at most 3 of those statues at once. And the way the game works is that you want to break all 6 eventually, because that hides the non-story related boss of that floor. Because there's going to be a story boss for each chapter, but the main greed for each floor of Xanadu, like each segment of Xanadu, is locked behind finding those 6 statues, cleansing all of them, and then being able to proceed to the furthest point of that segment.
Okay.
And it's something you want to do, because not only are you going to get better like loot from doing that, and it's going to improve your ranking in the academy, but also you'll find these mirrors that will give you new abilities. Like, for example, the main greed of the first segment of Xanadu, if you kill it, the mirror that's guarding will give you an air dash.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah,
I'd
you'll
like
be
one.
playing Mega Man X all of a sudden. You know,
Nice.
the way it feels. But
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, it's like I think it's called corruption. I think it's like once the whole gauge is like completely filled, your character starts to get poisoned, and then you can't heal yourself anymore. It's like kind of like telling you it's like you're done. You need to go back. Unless
It kind of reminds you a little
really-
bit like the OG Persona 3 fatigue system. In
Yeah.
a way.
I was gonna say, like, I was staying kind of quiet because I have not played Tokyo Xanadu, but I was trying to draw things in my head, like, what similar systems is this like in other games? Because these are maybe packaged a bit differently in this game, but they exist in other formats in the other titles. And I was like, well, obviously this is an Atlas game, or the game I'm about to compare it to, but talking about how it's best to not go into the dungeon until you're forced to. It's a similar vibe to, like, I'm thinking Metaphor, where it's like you really want to clear this dungeon in one day, even if it sucks, because you're going to lose your opportunities to do other things if you don't do that. So that's kind of what I was thinking in my head. And then when you talked about having a debuff if you stay in there too long, I'm like, didn't I play a Persona game that did that? So couldn't quite remember what it was, and I only played Persona 3 I did not ever finish it, but I do remember that system being kind of like, even if a fatigue system kicks in, you just stay put. You want to get as far as you can because it pays off in the end or something like that. I need to replay that game or actually finish it.
And one of the things that struck when they first showed off Kyoto Xanadu gameplay, one of the things that really caught people off guard was this mixture of this. It's like half 2.5D Metroidvania esque. When you're exploring the dungeon, and then like in certain like key moments like boss battles, it turns to more traditional Falcom third person action camera style. Uh, how do you guys feel about this hybrid presentation in Kyoto Xanadu?
It's interesting. I think it works. I think especially for exploring the stuff outside of Xanadu, it feels like Falcom knew what the budget of this project was going to be and were smart with how they allocated it, because I think exploring the towns and whatnot through the side scroll perspective works out because it doesn't look cheap when you're exploring the areas. It actually feels like it fits pretty well. The only overworld segments that are 3D so far is the Academy, which you can just explore. Like, there's certain segments that are 3D in the Academy, and like the school buildings themselves are 2D. But like the campus grounds, there are 3D segments, and then there are certain segments in Xanadu itself that are 3D. But really, none of the main areas. The main areas of the game are almost entirely 2D. So the only time you go into 3D is when you're in a boss battle or when you're interacting with a gate, which is basically waves of enemies and then like a final fight. And you want to deal with those because they're first off the most efficient way to level up your character in Xanadu, but also they give you a bunch of rep for like raising your ranking, and also gives you a bunch of materials and gear for clearing it and that sort of thing. So it's like you want to find all those gates, and sometimes you need to find those gates and clear them in order to unblock a path to proceed further into like the floor itself.
How about you, Chow?
Sorry, got completely lost in the topic.
No, I'm just talking about the hybrid camera presentation between like the 2D
I think
side
it's nothing
scroller
really
and
new. I think if you played Xanadu back in the old PCs, it's like, yeah, it got that 2D kind of vibe from it. But I don't know. I think the 2D thing is like awesome for me personally. Because I love playing Mega Man X, like, or the X series, right? So it kind of feels right at home to me. I'm not sure for some other people. Some people might think this looks cheap. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
My
like
impression's very good.
I really like this game's presentation. I really like this game's structure. I said earlier that this game does, in a lot of ways, remind me of some of the stuff that Falcom. It feels like a high fidelity PSP game, and I don't mean that negatively. I mean that with all the praise possible. Like, I don't know if you feel the same way, Chow, but this really does feel like the sort of project you would have gotten on the PSP.
Yeah, I would say so. It's like it's a lot smaller in scope budget wise. You also would say like I think Tokyo Xanadu has like a much bigger budget than this game, in my opinion. It's like even like
Yeah.
it's like like in the old game there was an anime opening. There isn't an anime opening in this one. Every time you clear a chapter, you get like these like slideshow with like ending credits or something like that instead, right? But it's a lot different. But I think I think they know their budget and they scope it that way.
I actually kind of like and prefer like the older Falcom openings that were not like fully animated, but more just like moving stills, like kind of like artistically like renders of characters and backgrounds and whatnot. I actually kind of like
me too.
how creative they could be to make those look good.
Yeah, the ones that come to mind is like the Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2 openings.
Those or like East Origin and things like that.
Yeah,
I still love the original Trails in the Sky opening, but
yeah, those two.
really good too. It's also kind of neat that this game, as you guys are saying, I do like hearing the smaller scope nature of it, because one of the things that it's not really a big dig in terms of like how they've treated East, because like the East games are still fairly still like manageable hours wise. It's not crazy, but there is a sort of trailsification, if you will, with recent East entries, where you definitely can kind of tell that there was the Trail's influence on East. And for me, I'm like, I kind of like East more so on the action gameplay side of things, and while the narrative is largely okay, I do notice that there is like influence because of the story heavy nature of Trails, how that's seeped over to East, and sometimes it doesn't always work.
yeah. I'd say the one time it really did work was East 8, and I guess like story-wise East 9, but East 10 I don't necessarily think it was as elegant as it could have been. But besides the point, Kyoto Xanadu, I've been liking quite a bit. I again, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, I was not a fan of Tokyo Xanadu, but I always felt like they were gonna have to figure out what sort of series they wanted Xanadu to be going forward, and Kyoto Xanadu definitely feels like a sufficient answer to that like identity crisis problem.
We can't wrap this up without addressing the elephant in the room, because I was gonna ask you about the music.
I was going to ask about the elephant in the room.
I was gonna ask about.
That's not the one I was thinking about.
I was
That
gonna
was
ask about
real
the music.
2026. Did you want to talk about that thing about the composer situation, the new/former composer situation?
Oh, I didn't know about the composer situation, but I know on social media that you noticed that one of the BGS
Oh,
was
that one.
very emblematic of a very popular song in the West. And it's like, that I heard it,
Okay.
I'm like, wait a
Event
minute, he's
Theme
right.
2, as Falcom Music Channel has called it, is a song that takes heavy inspiration from Coldplay's very iconic "Viva La Vida."
Yeah,
I was gonna say, there's like, have you heard the victory theme when you clear and was it like the gate? It sounds like the Final Fantasy main theme when it.
I don't think it's not as close as the event. Like, you've heard that theme, Chow. You've gotten far enough in the game to hear it. So
Yeah, I heard it too. I was like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it
Fucking
definitely has that like that whole
copyright.
it has the whole dun 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 dun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to mimic it too closely, obviously.
Yeah.
We don't want to be hit with copyright strike either.
But it was definitely just, I was like, what's going on with this? And I heard when you did an audio recording, and I'm like, oh my god, that is oddly. But I didn't know about the other situation. What are you talking about in terms of like the composer?
There's been talk for the last couple of months. I guess not really too much talk, because until like Kyoto Xanadu's release, people didn't have any specific reason to believe it. But like back in March, there was a streamer on Bilibili that claimed to be a former Falcom JDK member and made a few provocative statements that on their own, again, we didn't have any evidence that what they were saying was true, but now we do have some sort of evidence that matches up with with some of the claims they made about specific songs that they worked on for Kyoto Xanadu. And the reason we know that is because the PC release of Kyoto Xanadu has metadata for each track for who worked on it. And for some of the metadata, we know which members of Falcom JDK or which freelancers may have worked on each song, but there's at least a handful of songs that have like a signifier for nobody that we knew that matches up with the specific songs this leaker said they worked on, which definitely puts some credence to some of the other stuff they're saying. If there's at least some sort of proof that no, there was a new person that was at like Falcom JDK for at least like a year that worked on these specific songs, that this person who's claiming to be a former new member of Falcom JDK, that they worked on these specific types of songs for this game.
So did they make like another claim that now has more substantiation behind it? Is that the main?
It's not
point?
that they made any new claims. It's just that they made this was from a live stream in March, and they made a bunch of claims then, and they specifically said that they worked on songs for Kyoto Xanadu, including a dungeon theme, a more mysterious event theme, and the game over theme. And looking at the metadata for themes matching those descriptions, a new Falcom JDK member that wasn't previously disclosed and isn't in the credits because they left the company did in fact make those songs.
And it just seems like that, like it, based on this person's claims, it just seems like there's more turbulence behind the scenes that people maybe not be privy to when it comes to Falcom's management of the sound side of their games and the staffing situation there. Obviously, it's one of those things that's like it's hard to like
like I wouldn't
one way or another, but
I wouldn't bring it up.
Evidence.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't bring it up at all if not for the fact that it's like because we have that metadata that lines up with their claims they made months ago, which this person would have had no way of knowing about that metadata that far in advance.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea that was even a situation that's happening. I just thought, I was like, oh, how's the music? And I heard about like the whole Coldplay sounding thing, but I did not know that whole side of it. Seems crazy.
It's not surprising. I feel like anyone that's been around like the Falcom fandom long enough has known that it's been not even an open secret, just kind of just known in general that the way that Falcom treats their sound team is not great. So it's not really a surprise, but to have like some as close to like a full confirmation as you can get is still disappointing.
It's one of those frustrating things where like you have a sound team, like one of the primary reasons people love your games is because of the soundtrack that they have with them. And that's been like that's not even a one-time thing for Falcon. That's an ongoing thing for decades for their games. And it seems like the situation surrounding that is like has never really gotten better for the most part.
Yeah. And it doesn't change the situation where people are being overworked and whatnot. But I think it's worth noting that Kyoto Xanadu is like so far probably the best soundtrack they've made since Tokyo Xanadu.
Yeah, I think my fear of this game, and hopefully, these will be unfounded, but I'm worried that they'll do an EX Plus version of this game, and they'll run into a situation with how East 10 and East 10 Proud Nordics went, where if they do an EX Plus version of this game, does the Western release of this Kyoto Xanadu game come out, and then the EX Plus version is shortly announced after it, which will once again kind of kill off the Western sales and interest.
They'll do it when the PS6 comes out.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna ask, like, someone who's been following this closer than I have, like, what is this? Just as a reminder, what is the status of like a Western announcement? Because we thought it would be worldwide, but then it wasn't. We thought we might have had a publisher, but then we didn't. Like, what's the status of the Western release of this? Is it just a giant question mark?
Someone has it, and that's the reason why we know the official Western title. And the only reason we know that is because the Bracer Guild, they're saying that this is the official Western title. And they sell official Falcom merchandise. It's like officially licensed, and they're using the title, the English title, the Blooming Phantom. So it's like
Isn't that what Clouded Leopard also calls it?
That's what the Steam page
yes,
also
the thing is that there's two things you need to understand about that. First off, I've talked with people. Clouded Leopard is not doing the Western localization.
Yeah, I understand that just because Clouded Leopard's title is there in public doesn't mean that's necessarily like the Western title, but I just was pointing
No, it is the Western title is a thing.
Yeah, it is, but didn't necessarily
not always the case.
It's worth noting that just because the Steam page that lists English as unsupported now doesn't mean that there's going to be a separate Steam page, because obviously Clouded Leopard has done this a bunch in the past, but the Trails in the Sky second chapter Steam page is already up, and it's unified between Clouded Leopard and the Western Japanese version. So it's like they're all on one Steam page now. So I fully expect, and granted, I could be wrong this time. It could just be like, just because they finally fixed it with Trails in the Sky second chapter does not necessarily mean the Kyoto Xanadu is also going to be fixed. So small grain of salt. But I would be shocked if this current Steam page is not also the Steam page for the Western localization when it gets updated with one. I would not be shocked.
We'll see. I mean, I don't know. So it's also one of those things that, like, if they go down that route, will that same Steam page be qualified to be up in the newest releases again?
That's the other thing. I would not be shocked if. I'll be blunt. Like, I talked to some folks at Anime Expo, and I've talked to some folks not at Anime Expo, but like privately. And the one, like, I don't know who has it yet, but the one thing that is clear is that it was originally the plan that the Western localization would have been day and date. But for whatever reason, my understanding is that Falcom deliberately incited a bidding war, and that derailed things a bit.
So basically, to answer Brian's question, we have no idea at this point. There is one currently in production, but for whatever reason, the people who are actually working at it in the West cannot say that they are yet, for one reason or another.
Yeah. And it's like,
Who you gonna bet is? I don't think it's gonna be NIS. I don't.
I wish it was NIS because at least I would hope that Durante would be working on it, but it feels like not. But now it's in this weird situation where like if they're gonna use the same Steam page for it, then even if NIS America was working on it, that means that Durante's company wouldn't be working on the PC port because they've been using the same established current
yeah.
app that's already on
I guess
Steam side,
they.
at least,
I
it's
guess
going to be used as an update.
it is possible that whatever company is working on the localization might be able to force Falcom's hand and be like, "Hey, you need to let us have a separate Steam page, so we'll show up on the new releases." In which case, maybe that'll happen. So I guess I'd say if you don't speak Japanese, do not buy Kyoto Xanadu yet.
Yeah,
Too late.
Yeah, it's also it's a case by case scenario because Chow, we're gonna like if you've been following the developers of Magical Girl Witch Trials, they had recent use for the upcoming localization in other languages, including English, and they confirmed that that localization work on that game is not going to be a separate app. It's going to be added as a free update to the existing Steam version, so people can can feel secure buying the Steam version of that game and just getting it and get localization thrown up update. And then they got a lot of feedback from that initial announcement that they're now extending that same offer to the Nintendo Switch. I don't know if it's Switch 1 or Switch 2 version of that game because I forgot which console platform it's released on.
I thought it was just that they are patching the Japanese version, but they haven't announced the bringing that version internationally or something like that. I read,
Yeah.
but I'm
So
not
yeah,
100% sure because
the-
I saw people saying that if you want it for sure, just buy it on Steam now because it's discounted and they're adding English towards the end of the year.
They
While
recently announced that
yeah.
they're also going to do the same thing with the Switch version of that game, like adding it as an update. But we don't know if
Yeah.
they're actually gonna sell
That's
it in
the
the
thing,
West
right?
officially yet.
That's
I would
the thing,
assume
right?
they
It's
would,
going to be.
but who knows?
I mean, this is one of those things where, even James knows this. We don't know if it'll get approved for release outside Japan at this point with Nintendo stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, I
I
mean
think this is
that'd
one
be
of those
weird.
situations where if there's a physical release in Japan, if you buy that, you'll get it as an update. Like this has happened with I forgot which key visual novel this was, from the dev key. They you couldn't buy it outside Japan, but if you bought the Japanese physical, it just got patched with English. I
Mikhail,
forgot
I
which
will
one it
say
was,
I would not be concerned about this game being released
Okay.
in the West on Nintendo platforms, considering it was announced at Nintendo Direct in English.
Oh, if
I
it
don't-
was, then yeah, then it's fine. I was confusing it with something else then because I thought I saw people saying that just buy this on Steam to be safe, and I was like, I put it on my wish list because I don't have time to play it right now. But I was like, yeah, I've
Oh
seen
no.
people
Oh,
post
okay.
about
You were
it.
talking about
we're-
the VN. Okay. Never mind. I thought you were talking about
No. I was talking about the VN. No. Kyoto Xanadu, that's a separate thing. I'm talking about this VN specifically
right.
because
Yeah. I
people
don't
have
know.
been posting about it and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, we don't know who's working on this. All I know is it's not Clouded Leopard, and it's probably not Axis. Beyond that, I've heard speculation about who it could be, but I don't know who it is 100% yet. And the people that would know haven't been talking. So
Yeah. So stay tuned until we're also in the same boat as Western players who are anticipating this game. It's like we don't know as much as you do either. So stay tuned. If you plan on playing this in the future with English, do not buy anything yet until anything is firmly solidified and confirmed. You know, on that end.
I mean, they just need to slot it into
preemptively
the open
buy it.
September window, when nothing else is going on.
Yeah, release it on September 17th. Nothing else.
Yeah. I'm not a business person, but I'm like, I wonder if a January would release it actually makes more sense just to not maybe just wait out the deluge. But I obviously I don't
It's
know what their
just
constraints are in terms of fiscal years and things like
it's
that.
just crazy that we haven't even gotten an announcement yet, like for who's working on it. It's
Don't
just
release it in February or March. We had to deal with Persona FF7.
I wonder if they didn't make it exactly clear how much text this game has, because like I said, it has that like VN style glossary, and it's like most of the presentation is like VN style. So there's a lot of text in this game. Even for a
Just release
Falcom
it
game,
on
there's
September 17th with everything else,
Mhm. But yeah,
including Trail's second chapter, actually.
yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
It's just kind of been sad that like the release of this game has been kind of it's been muddied by so many other external factors. Like this should be something to be celebrated internationally, but for one reason or another, things got in the way of that. Especially like like everyone was like rejoicing when this was like announced worldwide simultaneously and through Nintendo Direct. It's like, oh, cool, Falcom's really going for it, and then look where we are now. So,
and yeah, not only that, but like the fact that Trail's first and Trail's second were like, hell yeah, worldwide release. Even in the whatever follows Kano Kaseki Beyond the Horizon is like that's also hopefully going to be simultaneous. So like
I will
we've
see.
made it.
We'll
and,
see.
and then
Yeah,
you're like
that's not
maybe not.
if that. Yeah, if the next new Trails installment after Kai isn't a worldwide simultaneous release, then people have every right to be fucking pissed about it. For
I
sure.
don't have the numbers in front of me also, but even in terms of just like Falcom's pure financials, like Trail's first chapter being a global remake worldwide release has been like super duper successful for them. So
Mhm. Yeah. Like it's always I don't understand like the business side of things, and obviously I'm not a business person. I don't work for any of these companies, but it's always been a little frustrating to me how Falcom is all but ready to play ball with Clouded Leopard Entertainment, but is very, very. It feels like they're difficult when it comes to like the Western side and partnerships of things. But when it's Clouded Leopard Entertainment, they're like all on the same. It seems like they're on the same railroad track consistently. When it comes to the Western side, it's just like I don't know. It's just like it's a little frustrating to be honest.
I think because they have much of like the Asia market, so they just kind of like prioritize them first. That's usually how it goes,
Wasn't
probably.
it something about how the people who they worked with at Sony when Sony had that
My
Asia side who
unders-
used to handle localization,
my
and then those
understand
people ended up founding CLE? Isn't that what happened?
That's what I've heard. Yeah, and that would make sense. But I honestly, like, even looking at Sky First Chapter, like, it was in a similar situation for a bit. Like, there was like several months where we did not know who was handling the localization. The only difference is that they announced that over a year before it actually came out, so there was plenty of time for a publisher to be found. For Kyoto Xanadu, they didn't officially fully unveil it until February, and it came out literally just a few days ago. So
What I'm trying to think of like okay, so it feels like the missing connecting dots is like maybe these publishing arrangements in the West should be ironed out before you make the announcement on Western events.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
maybe if I'm
because
connecting the dots.
I need to remind you guys, not last Tokyo Game Show, but Tokyo Game Show 2024. I spoke with Inagaki-san at I spoke with him at on the show floor, and I asked about the situation at the time with who they were partnering with for Trolls and Sky First Chapter, because we knew that then they made the claims it was going to be worldwide, and it did end up bearing fruit, but they did not have a publisher announced. And I asked him then at Tokyo Game Show, and at that point, they did not have a partner yet, and he said that they were talking with multiple different companies. And he even listed a few names that did not end up working on it, but he said that they were even reaching out to folks like Bandai Namco about possibly doing it. The fact that I think you're right, where they try to not really get these things ironed out for whatever reason until after an announcement. That feels like what's going on. And I
It feels
wouldn't
like
be
it feels like an antithesis of like what anyone does.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
you're using the initial announcement in the West as like
the one thing I'm
as
curious. The one thing I'm especially
to ship it to find a publisher. It's like doing it's almost like announcing your game through a Kickstarter in hopes of finding a publisher for it and raising the funds to show that there's the public, like, hey, there's interest.
One thing I'm
in
especially
this
curious
project.
about is that, like, obviously, Trails in the Sky first chapter, when that was first revealed, they used screenshots. Well, they made screenshots using the Xseed script back then to showcase the script, because they had something to work with. When they unveiled Kyoto Xanadu, it was on an English Nintendo Direct with English footage. Who did that translation? And my question is, and I guess it's like a rhetorical question, because I feel like I know the answer to this, even though I haven't been deliberately told. But I'm pretty sure whichever company worked on that trailer had the understanding that they would do the localization, and that did not turn out to be the case. That's the vibe I'm getting.
Ugh. What a mess. What a fucking mess.
This has nothing to do with anything, but your mention of Abundant Name Code made me remember, oh yeah, what happened to that Fate remaster
Fate
remake
Extra.
thing that Abundant Name Code is no longer involved with?
That one's insane too.
Yeah.
I would really want to know what, like, I feel like the simplest answer to that is like, Aniplex is gonna do it because the Aniplex is
They
pretty
publish
much
their own shit now, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But who knows at that point? It is funny. Like the funniest interpretation of it is like the project was just so fucking mismanaged and is so off schedule that Bandai Namco, even for Bandai Namco, they had to back out. That is the funniest explanation. Not to say that that's true, but it is funny.
I totally don't
Thank
remember
you.
that trailer's English, so I'm gonna rewatch the trailer again.
Yeah, no, it was in English. I mean, literally, like, that screenshot that Adam posted in the voice channel chat was from the trailer.
Yeah, we have English screenshots, which we got from it's actually from the Nintendo press site, because when they do like a Nintendo Direct, they go to the press site in English. So someone provided them to Nintendo. I mean, probably Falcom, but who did the translation? Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I was going to say thank you, James, thank you, Chow, and thank you others for. Oh, I wasn't expecting the initial discussion on Kyoto Xanadu to be an hour long, but there's a lot to dive in here, especially the fact that it doesn't have more concrete English or worldwide release details, even though it was leaning that way at the time, but just has fallen off the tracks ever since.
Feels like we're in like 2005 again.
Yeah, like it feels like out of time. Like this used to be commonplace. This was every Japanese release, but now it's like, oh, this is kind of rare. Like this is interesting at this point. But really cool that we were at least able to give a spoiler-free look in, talk about the game, how it falls into Falcom's, larger strategy, modern twist that they've put on it. So I guess we'll kind of stay tuned for anything past the Japanese release. And that was the main game we had listed to talk about today. But Josh, you had put up just a handful of titles here that I presume you wanted to go through like rapid fire ish, or at least at some, and
not
1, 2,
too-
3.
Yeah,
Go on.
in terms of other games that weren't Falcom this week. This week has kind of been surprisingly packed with like new releases that like are just filled with cool games of different genres that I checked out. Like one that really caught the eyes of many people at like events and live streams is the Denshattack. That is that game that has like that subway train that is going at rapid speed, and there's like multi-track drifting, and the way that you like control it and go about it is like there are these stages where you are taking control of this subway train that can jump, switch on tracks, do tricks in the air. That's been just a really, really fun like arcade game, very responsive and very emblematic of like if you're familiar with like the Tony Hawk style like trick system with a little bit of like jet set radio sort of like vibe to it, and just an all around like very creative game developed by undercoders and published by Fireshrine Games and Bulk Ray Games that really iterate and evolve the concept of like its inspirations in like very creative and colorful ways, where each of these stages that you're going around have like challenge level or challenges to them, whether it's like completing in a certain time or getting a certain like point score and collecting these collectibles throughout the level. Whether it's like spray cans or like a little movie reel that will add certain like fun fluff to like a scrapbook that you unlock throughout the game, whether it's like fun facts about this like region of Japan or like some in-game lore about some of the characters, um, and all that stuff. And it's a very just positive, fun story of like being the best like multi-track subway train pilot writer in this
That is a very specific
crazed
premise,
world.
but it's very cool.
Yeah, definitely check it out whenever you can. It's a very very fun game that's just like it's very fast, fluid,
How's the music?
responsive, excellent. There's a lot of as people may have heard, like there's some collaboration tracks, like of course in the RPG space, like there was a track by Shoji Meguro and Lotus Juice who contributed to this. You have Kota Takahashi on it. You have Harumi Fujita, Capcom, who also contributed. But the core composers were Sean Bialo and Andrew One. There's just it is very lively, very upbeat, just excellent game that I cannot wait to play more of and master these levels. It's also fun because these levels have like alternate pathways on where like it'll still lead to like the same end, but the way that you get to there has like all sorts of like different branching paths depending on like how some of them lead to certain like collectibles that have more challenging like grinds and drifts and sort of like track switches that you go through. Just a really vivid, inventive, fun game that I wanted to shout out. Another one that entered early access this week is Hell Maiden. This is by developers Astral Shift, who you may know from Little Goody Two Shoes from a few years back that were published under that Square Enix Indie Collective that I'm not sure is up anymore. And there's like that whole initiative. Um, but this one is fully developed and published by Astral Shift themselves. Of course, they have that. They've carved out their own style of like uh, having an art style that's like very reminiscent of like mid '90s anime, sort of like big, big eyes, very uh, like elaborate like
Poofy hair.
outfits and dress wear. Yes, poofy hair. This is the premise of this is sort of Dante's Inferno, where it takes place after Dante's Inferno, but it's now looped back in reverse, where it starts off with an amnesic Dante Allegri. I forgot the exact last name. Who reached Eden, but now has looped back into like the from square one without their memory, and uh, has to go through like these circles of hell once more. And the way that this game is, the gameplay of it is a little bit of Vampire Survivors, where it is like this wave based, like a lot of like enemies coming towards you, and you have to defeat them to gain like experience point crystals. And as you level up, you are um, presented with like one of three choices how you power up your character. But the main thing that separates this from other Vampire Survivors esque games is that there's a whole deck builder system that is kind of core to how you build your character, where as you're powering up your character, you can wield up to 4 weapons with you, and the way that you can modify them is through deck building them. So as you are collecting power ups and new weapons through leveling up, the actual order of what your weapons are on your weapon bar matters, because there are some weapons that affect other weapon cards by them. For example, I'll have like let's say a fireball weapon spell and another one that shoots um like floating orbs around me. And some of these cards are like, hey, we will power up like the all the weapons to the right of this card. So if I put that weapon or that modifier on, let's say, I'm trying to think of like a weapon in this game, like a traveling projectile. Um, that is different from those other weapons. If I order that weapon to the left of those cards, then that card that I slot into that wandering projectile that says, "Hey, go add a projectile to all the other weapons to the right of this." It won't add a projectile to that card, but it'll power up both that floating orbs surrounding me and the fireballs that I'm spewing out that adds a projectile to them. So it's actually pretty robust in like allowing you to reorder your weapon deck cards that fill up your bar, and also being able to reallocate all the modifiers on weapon cards to any other card like freely after you like level up in that level up screen. So there's a lot of like strategic depth and gameplay on like how you want to modify your arsenal in it, and that's how it differentiates itself from other vampire survivors likes of the genre in that regard. It does like once again, it's still in early access, so there's still like some balancing issues in the way that certain things in the like in the meta progression feels like it's too reliant on that for it to start feeling good. So there's still things to iron out in that game, and of course adding more playable characters and content and all that stuff. But it's a pretty awesome foundation of the concept that they have. So I wanted to shout out that game as well. It's been a really fun, addictive game that I've been booting up time and time again because it is tough, but it is tough in a way that I enjoy because it makes you want to like strive towards like, okay, I really want to beat this, even though these enemies feel like bullshit at times. If it's just
And
something
they
you
are
probably have to iron
that
out.
is hell Maiden in early access on Steam.
Yes.
I was looking
Yeah.
through the art and stuff after you described it on the Steam page. It looks really
Yeah.
kind of really cool match of styles.
Yeah. And then the last one that I picked up this week, in terms of new releases that wasn't Kyoto Xanadu, was this turn-based strategy RPG called Dead Weight. That's developed by Qliphah Games and published by both Qliphah Games and Spaghetti Cat. It's a pretty interesting like roguelike structure with a Sky Pirates pixel aesthetic, where there's like when you begin the game, you are traversing with this man and a woman, and then the end of this like tutorial section is the woman gets captured by this evil like sorceress, and your main objective is like go rescue her. And the way that you do that is you have this like skyship that you're traversing on this overhead map from like this base town to other like floating islands, whether it's like finding an artifact there to like that has equipment or like an enemy counter. But there's a whole like resource management progression at this overhead map before you even get to any strategy RPG combat, where like traversing from different islands consumes fuel. So you can't drift off too far in it, or else if you run out of fuel, you'll start drifting off course and you'll lose control of the ship, and so forth. So you have to be strategic about like, okay, I'm running low on fuel, so I want to take this enemy encounter over there because the enemy encounters usually reward fuel. Sometimes you'll find like fuel items that you use that you can use as a consumable resource as well. And the strategy RPG of it, I'm still fairly early on, but the strategy RPG of it is fairly, it's like limited, and I'm not sure if I like it or not yet in terms of like how limited it feels the strategy the combat encounters, because I only have one party member so far. I haven't gotten another one. I haven't like hired a mercenary because I had to unlock that on the meta progression tree. But also you can get other playable characters by freeing them from these like major bosses. I haven't gotten past the first one yet, but there's a selectable playable character screen. It's like, oh, you can't play this character yet until you free them from this boss, and so forth. But the strategic RPG encounters they're very small scope, which is fine, and they're very like in tight corridor maps. And your character, like your starting character, is like a warrior type that can push, and they can attack with their sword, like that's up to two tiles out, and they can act twice, and it'll show you on the ground whether on where the enemies are going to strike next. So there's like a red indicators that show, hey, don't be in these damage zones. If you are, you'll take damage from it. But it feels, so far with only one party member who can only act twice in their turn, like very fairly limited. Because like the acting twice means like even if you move 2 tiles, that'll consume both of your action points. And moving one tile is one action point. Moving another one is another action point. So you have to be very, very smart and deliberate about like how you maneuver against one versus like multiple enemies, because you are so heavily limited on like what you can do. Like sometimes the most you can do is like I'll do one weapon swing here and then move one tile to like the left to get out of this damage zone, which is like I'm sure it'll feel better once I get other party members, whether it's a hired help or not. But at the moment, it's like I it's an interesting concept that I hope that it won't feel too cumbersome the more I play and flesh it all out and get more like meta progression stuff. But it is an interesting foundation because I do have a knack of like I do think that like having systems that feel limited deliberately can lead to some like very interesting situations in terms of like battle design and how you maneuver out of like very tricky situations based on like very unlimited tool set that you have, which I do enjoy.
And that one was
Uh,
Dead Weight
yes.
on Steam. Also early access? I didn't pull that Steam page up.
No, this is not early access. This is
Oh, so
out.
no, that one's out. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Oh, just released literally 2 days ago. So
Yeah.
brand new release.
hmm
And that covers us for games, kind of the games talk section. And we do have a handful of features here. As like a quick programming note, Mikhail did have to step out. We do record in the middle of the night for him, of course, calling in from the other side of the world, so totally valid. But we will at least platform a bunch of features that have gone up on the site, Mikhail being the author of many of them, but a handful of other ones as well from different contributors to the site. So I'll try to just kind of go through these in no particular order, but all new articles as of this week. A couple of the interviews that Mikhail put out. This one I think is the kind of the most interesting to me personally. It's an interview with a handful of business executives at GOG. Um, GOG was used to be associated directly with a project under a program under CD Projekt, but a couple of years ago went divested from that and kind of went fully independent. Though they still have business ties at that point. Mikhail was able to speak to Michael Obakowski, Martin Pazinski, and uh, Pinar Gnip. I did my best on those pronunciations about GOG. They've been in the business for several years at this point, a couple decades. Their preservation efforts, GOG Dreamlist, working with Square Enix and Capcom, just talking about why are they so invested in this, what they feel about game preservation, how that conversation looks in the current landscape, especially coming off the heels of Sony's announcement for no longer making physical media. What does that mean in this space? So it's a really cool, lengthy interview, not with a specific publisher or author about a specific game, but more about just game ownership, game preservation, game digital services in general with GOG. So I think it's a really cool read through. I think the coolest note is the very last question about like Mikhail asked, "What releases do you think are the most important or the most, impactful for GOG's visibility over the years?" And Marcin immediately said, "Capcom releases like Resident Evil and Dino Crisis." Basically, just saying like, "Hey, you make these classic games available to play, and people will find them." So it kind of flies in the space of. You see corner suite executives say like, "Who's going to play the old games? We're going to make new ones. We don't make the." It's like, don't that's not necessarily true. And if you make it available, in a manner that is not cumbersome or like doesn't take a lot of hurdles to jump to be accessed, then you can make these games be preserved, and that's kind of at the heart of the whole conversation, right? So do check out Mikhail's interview with the team behind GOG, the preservation program, and all that stuff, all up on the site,
Yeah.
rpgsite.net.
One of my favorite questions out of this interview, like very excellent interview, Mikhail conducted with them was about like one of the big initiatives that GOG has been undertaking recently is that Dream List, where people really want a lot of the older titles to be preserved in some way, shape, or form. And Dreamless is like one of those initiatives that's like trying to convey to GOG like please find a way to reach out to these whoever has the rights to these titles, like make a case for them on why they should work with them to release these titles. And Marston, obviously while the number does count and it helps us build a case for the publishers and the rights holders who have these games under their belt. One of the things that really impacts them both GOG and the rights holders the most is player testimonials about like what this game means to them and how in certain cases why accessing this game in the region that they're in is virtually impossible helps those first-hand accounts don't ever reach the ears of those rights holders without like an official channel, and how and GOG helps officiate that, like that sort of like direct communication between like the community and the rights holders, and they already, well, without mentioning the title for them, in one case this already like is moving the conversation forward for one of these like titles in that regard because of the player testimonial they've received.
And just like a personal testimonial, I already mentioned it, but I'll just bring it up again. Just it was really convenient to have Gothic 1 available in the preservation program and be like, "Hey, I can actually enjoy this game," you know, in terms of in the 2020s, and not because it doesn't play out of the box on Steam, and I'm playing games on Steam right now, I'll talk about next week, that I wish were in the preservation program and they're not. And so I had a direct experience about the value that that sort of stuff can bring. So
Yeah.
really cool to see. Adam, I think this next one I'm okay sharing. I was going to talk about, it's not live at the time, but I think it'll be live by the time we go. It's not live as I speak into the microphone now, but I think it'll be live as by the time this podcast is published. Um, Junior did return to the site to write up a review on Culdcept Begins. We had a conversation a month ago at this point, 3 weeks ago, about the difference between Culdcept Begins and Culdcept the First. This is the prequel. And Junior just wrote up a really glowing, but kind of a short but like glowing interview about this game, and just thought that it had a really neat, tight, gameplay mechanic, had a really cool fitting art style, and just thought it had a lot of versatility to it. So by the time this podcast goes out, you should be able to see that as the most recent game review up on the site for a series that I'm not really familiar with, but Junior took the task of writing a review for Cults It Begins and was really, 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 really fond of it. So just want to at least give that a shout out. Another interview that went up from another contributor to the site. This is from Hayes. He was, we talked a few times about the upcoming Dragon's Dogma 2, Dark Arisen, and Hayes was able to reach out to the team over at Capcom, speaking about them again, about the expansion, about its new gameplay systems, and a little bit about the titling, because we've kind of I don't know, poked at that. Like you decided to name it the same title as the game's first expansion. Are they trying to draw a parallel? And they basically said they decided to name it after the content we were planning to add, and then they gave some reasoning for it. I don't know if it really holds water, but if the question was asked about why'd you name this Dark Arisen again, and they gave an answer to that. They talked about that mainly this was made out of feedback from the game about how some players wish that Dragon's Dogma 2 tackled that they didn't with the original launch. So why they decided to go ahead and do this, and a few things about the concept of friction in games, about the decision to add more quality of life features in terms of teleports and things like that. So they say, via the title updates we've released and plan to release, we're trying to balance them as we add more options to play the game. So there's the Eternal Fury Stone. However, you still have the option to walk around the places you want to go. It's just an option. I'm like, well, true, but also like there's a difference between holding your own, like shackling yourself to a limit versus working within the constraints imposed upon you. I think
If you have an option,
because you
most
could
people are going to use the options.
Yeah, it's kind of like the argument where it's like when you have like a super overpowered ability, and it's like, well, just don't use it, and it's just like, well, that's true, but
I'm
Don't use Stendhal.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna bring this up, but it's stuck with me because I still remember it. But when we had this conversation with Xenoblade X Definitive Edition on Switch, when it released on Switch, and that whole the fast
Yeah.
cooldown whatever button,
Oh
and
yeah.
Mike works with it, and I won't name names on who was with us at that podcast, but like they were telling me like if it bothers you as much, don't use that option. I'm like, it's right there. You like that's I don't really like that argument of like, well, if you don't like that system, just like close your eyes and don't press the button. It's like, no, the developers gave everyone that option. Why would I not use it? A new feature, one of the new things they're touting, that's supposedly a core feature that of course I'm going to use because that's new to this game. Of course I'm going to use it.
And then just speaking more generally, like self-imposed challenges can be really fun. Like one of my favorites are only using like certain classes of characters in like tactical games. Like I'm only gonna play this, I don't know, Fire Emblem game with only mages, or I'm never gonna use a prestige class in a tabletop or an RPG based on a tabletop or whatever. But there's a difference between like, man, this game loses all challenge because you have too many potions or whatever. Like, well, just don't use them. It's like, but I have them. I have 80 of them just sitting there, and I can just use them. Like I don't think is it true that you can hold yourself to a like a self-imposed challenge like that? Sure, but it doesn't hit the same, I guess.
Yeah, my personal thought is that it's enjoyable when you have to like push the game to its limits to like succeed, to like work within the framework that the game provides you. But when you have to like start like cutting it out yourself, um, like you said, it can be enjoyable as like a self-imposed limit. But it's just that's when you have to like ignore parts of the game design.
Yeah, it's like different, like like doing like doing a Final Fantasy V walkthrough with a certain class layout. Like that is something that's like you're in full control of, and you can tailor this assist the whole playthrough to that like limitation of that. It's not something that's like constantly shoved in your face. Like you're tuning it in pre-advance, not something that's like I'll press X in the middle of a battle to win to win the battle immediately.
Mhm. Mikhail also did another interview here, and this was one that I didn't know he was working on until it went up. He interviewed Emmy Evans, who is a vocalist primarily known for her work in the Nier series, but has also worked with Etrian Odyssey and a few other series. I actually don't know of others right now.
The
She listed
the
any.
Labyrinth series, like
Oh
NIS.
yeah,
She did the credits themes for both Refrain and Galeria. So
He also contributed a track to a Grand Blue Fantasy event. I remember.
yeah. So Mikhail was able to interview Emmy Evans about who she is, what she's worked on, how do those opportunities end up like being manifested. She talked about how singing for Etrian Odyssey was her first time working on a game music track, and it was just a friend of a friend happened to know composer Norihiko Hibino, and so it's just kind of like one of those things that just auspiciously happened and then grew from there. I always think those sorts of where did you come from stories where it's just like, well, I don't really know. This is kind of a luck and being in the right place at the right time and being able to take advantage of those opportunities when they do arise. Just really cool to see those sorts of histories. But just talking about, oh yeah, and I'm scrolling down, just talking about, Mikhail asked, can you talk about your lesser known roles such as Chicory and Labyrinth of Reflame and Galleria. So she's worked with composer Lena Rain, who's worked on many titles. Uh, just really cool to see the breadth of work that Emmy Evans has done, and Mikhail getting a chance to write up an interview with her is really cool. So that's another Mikhail. Too bad he had to go to bed because I want to definitely platform some of these really cool interviews that Mikhail's able
I
to
didn't
put up
know
on the
that
site.
they referred to it as chaos language, like the whole newer made up language and the vocals that
Mhm,
that go through the songs. I didn't know there was actually an official term. Even though I'm like big
mhm.
into Newer, I did not know there was like it was called chaos language.
Wait, I thought that's Tales old as time. That it's called a chaos language.
I did not know. I mean, apparently I've been living under a rock.
Damn, I always knew it as chaos language. A lot of YouTubers made videos talking called
Okay, I
chaos.
don't really watch YouTube videos about stuff, so maybe that's the reason why.
And with Kaine, I was asked to create up a made-up language based on Gaelic. So I researched the language, listened to songs, grasped some specific sounds. I wrote lyrics mimicking the sounds I was hearing. Just kind of like that's how it might have started to come out to be. It was interesting to see like
Now
how.
I'm having a small epiphany. Like I always thought it sounded a little bit Gaelic. Like this made up language almost sounds like Irish or Gaelic, and like, oh, I guess that's not
That's
right.
exactly what
Yeah,
it is.
that's
It's made up
yeah,
Gaelic.
exactly.
So, so there you go. This next preview I'm interested in. Um, James, it's about a game that we first talked about maybe a month or two ago. This is Qliphah and Providence's Shadow. You were able to see a demo of this, and then you wrote up your impressions on it, but the impressions weren't entirely positive. So what? But I don't want to put words in your mouth. Just can you talk about your time with? How did you get
So,
the opportunity to go on with this, and what were your thoughts?
so I had a bunch of appointments with Arc System Works at Anime Expo, and like one of the things I ended up writing for Kotaku, but there was other stuff that didn't fit their scope. So Qliphah Providence's Shadow is an RPG, so I wrote up thoughts about it for us, and then there's I don't know when it'll be live, but there should be an interview with Guilty Gear Strive's producer Ken Miyauchi going up on Respec in the next couple of days. So that will go on live too. But I wouldn't even necessarily say my impressions for Qliphah were negative. More so, it's like, man, it was a mistake to have this demo in the first place because it doesn't really showcase the game's strengths, and I can tell that it's not a good showcase. And
How
it's
do you mean
like
by that?
so discounting Chow, I feel like everyone here has been at like an E3 or a Summer Game Fest, and we've played a demo that was like 15 minutes or so, and our main takeaway was, man, I'm not sure if I really learned anything about this game from the demo I played, or if it really, or if it did more harm than good being here in such a limited capacity for the type of game it is. Especially considering what we cover being RPGs, that it can be very difficult to have a good demo for a preview that
Yeah.
really showcases what a game is about without just
I
being
actually
boring.
remember in like the mid 2000s, it was like it felt like almost like a common adage, as in like RPGs have bad demos. Just like that genre does not demo well. I don't know if that's really true anymore, and obviously lots of RPGs get demos now, but it can be um, if it's not framed well.
Especially for like a trade show demo where it's like you have to structure something around that. It's like, what do you showcase for an RPG? Like, obviously, it's highly dependent because I covered Control Resonant for us from Summer Game Fest, and I was able to say that was a decent demo. The difference is that I had over an hour to play that.
Mhm.
Qliphah, the demo was one fight early on, very simple, that showcases the very basics of combat, but doesn't really stress you to use it to any significant degree and doesn't show you anything else about the gameplay loop. That if you read the store page and if you look at some of the photos, you can see that, oh, there's a lot more to this than just the combat. And even discounting that because it's a random demo at an event, they didn't want to have a fight that was too taxing, but unfortunately that meant that the fight itself wasn't engaging.
It kind of feels
Yeah.
like the inverse of my
And it's,
Sea of Remnants demo at Summer Game Fest, which just kept throwing thing after thing after thing after thing at me, and it was just like, I don't know what, like, this isn't locking together. Where this case, it feels like extremely narrow slice.
yeah. Yeah, so basically this it's less so about the demo itself, but right, like kind of like trying to investigate what this game actually is based off what I played and also what I conversations I had with the director, because I did have a few quotes there, and also looking at the Steam page, and it's like, no, this game looks like it could be very, very cool. Unfortunately, this demo shows absolutely none of what would make it cool if it is.
Yeah.
And so I guess I took a different approach. We're writing about this demo. It's less about the contents of the demo itself, but rather how I don't think this demo existing at Anime Expo was a good use of resources for anyone involved. I think they would have been better served just not having it there in the first place. Because I know multiple people, multiple freelancers that checked out this demo at Anime Expo, and I don't think most of them have written up about it because pretty much all of them were negative on it. And I wouldn't even say I was negative on it, but I'll be honest. I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to link this to PR, but I feel like even they got to understand it's like this wasn't a good demo.
You know what one of the more interesting game demos I played was at a trade show? I think it was Divinity Original Sin 2, so 2017, 2016, E3, like 3 years before it died.
Yeah.
It was that game had a not well heralded, but it did have like a multiplayer mode, and it was you fight the guy playing the kiosk next to you. Go. It was like they weren't demoing like a story section or anything like that. It was just like, here is just the gameplay unfiltered, you versus someone else, go. And it was interesting because it meant like you didn't really engage the game and like, where does this live in the broader story? How does does this show all the systems? I'm not saying it was good or bad. It was just like an interesting way to maybe tackle the problem by taking a different road, like taking the back road instead. So yeah, RPG demos are hard, I guess, is what I'm what I'm landing on at that point. But yeah, so thank you for providing up a cool a preview for Qliphah, Providence, and Shadow. And I didn't mention it, but you did. But yeah, this is uh, one of the games that was shown off at the ArcSys event in June. I'm trying to remember when it was first shown. Yeah, in June. So one of the games that they're publishing by developer Unite Plus. I have a handful of features here. I think the main two are the announcement that Octopath Traveler. These are all related to Square Enix games going to Switch 2. Octopath Traveler 1 and 2 are going to arrive on Switch 2 in the West in October, but they're already on Switch 2 in Japan. So Mikhail took a swing at that. And then just recently, this was like 2 days ago, Star Ocean: The Second Story R was just made available for Switch 2. And correct me if I'm wrong, it was basically just a shadow drop, just now available on Switch 2. And the reason why these two stories ended up being more than just what was on the tin is because they have continued the lack of consistency for Square Enix games being released on Switch 2. Like for Star Ocean R specifically, it is a $50 release. There's no upgrade path, and there is no save transfer. And my understanding is that's the same for Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, which is different from how like Final Fantasy Tactics, that HD remaster worked with when it arrived on Switch 2. So basically, it just stinks if you're halfway through these games, especially long games like Octopath Traveler 2, or if you want to play it on Switch 2, there's no way to transfer your save, and you got to pay basically full price for it. Octopath Traveler 1 and 2 have that interesting, like, you can have a decent rate if you buy both, but they're fully priced individually or something like that. It's weird. So, I don't know if there's any other thoughts about that. Just inconsistency in terms of Square Enix's Switch 2 port.
The announcement inconsistency also bugs me, even though it's like doesn't really matter. Like Final Fantasy X on Switch 2 comes out soon, and it was like announced not
That's
at
true.
a Nintendo Direct, but like at like right next to one, and they kind of announced it ahead of time, like, "Hey, this is being ported to Switch 2," and it's like, okay, sure. And then Octopath like shadow dropped in Japan, but coming out later in the West, like that's kind of weird. Sure. And then like Star Ocean, they're just like, oh, here it is. And it's like, why? Why was it?
Yeah, not to mention the Octopath stuff. Both of those things, it's a similar situation where like the Octopath games, they're $60 each in the West, but they're very clearly budget releases in Japan. Like obviously currency conversion not going to be 1-to-1, but a standard $60 equivalent release in Japan is going to be like 8,000 to 8,500 yen. The Octopath games on Switch 2 on the Japanese eShop are like 5,500 yen. They're very clearly budget releases. And yet they're
It's like $40 ish.
Yeah, $40 ish, but they're $60 each in the West. It's like, come on, really?
Oh, Square
It's like-
Enix, what are we gonna do with you?
And
What
for
are we
those
gonna do?
things, right? every individual thing wouldn't be like if that was the only thing that they were $40-ish in Japan and $60-ish in the West. Be like, okay, that's an interesting discrepancy, but it's the only thing. That's like, well, no, it's not the only thing. There's the no save transfer. There's the
I'd say it's still
just
shitty
inconsistency.
regardless, but
Yeah, I'm with you. There's just levels to shittiness, I guess. So especially since these are longer games, so like, hey, I can pick up my Octopath 2 game on Switch 2 and transfer. Like, nope, if you're already 20 hours in on your Switch 1 release, you either got to restart or stay put. Those are your options. Like, okay, that really feels kind of shitty.
it's like
Thank you, Square Enix.
usually I'm not one to say, hey, just buy the games on the Japanese eShop if you can. Because like usually I only do that for games that are only like Japanese or whatnot, or it's like for imports. But in a situation like this, it's like if you can and you're interested in playing these games on Switch 2, if you don't want to wait and you want to save money or both, just buy them on the Japanese eShop.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I do want to just shout out again Mikhail's very detailed work here. Like, especially for like the Octopath games, I'm looking at these images that he puts together, and this must have taken a fair bit of time. Just the difference between Switch 1 on Switch 2 docked versus Switch 2 docked, PS4 on PS5 Pro, and PS5 version on PS5 Pro. Like, very like to that level of granularity of what these games look and perform like. So if you have any questions about how these games perform on different consoles, depending on the version you have, he's got it at least covered to some extent. So outside of the silliness of the release criteria, just from a performance review, Mikhail's got you covered. So if you have any questions, we definitely have those up on the site. So check those out. And then I guess same song, second verse for a lot of different version comparisons that Mikhail has done. I'm just going to I'm going to lump these together in a trio. So Digimon Story Time Stranger, he did like the whole suite, Switch 1, Switch 2, Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam. Which versions of those have, what different performance, aptitude. Uh, Lies of P Complete Edition is now available on Switch. Is now available on Switch 2 or is coming out on Switch 2? Ahead of its launch. It'll be available on Switch 2 in August 6th, but Mikhail was able to play it on Switch 2 ahead of time, so he went ahead and talked about how that performs there, again with his very granular style. And then Disgaea Mayhem, we talked about this last week. It releases this upcoming week, and he was able to go basically again full granularity there on its comparison across PC handhelds and the Switch consoles. So if you're interested in Disgaea 2 on Switch 2 or any version of Digimon Time Story or Disgaea Mayhem, Mikhail's got a full performance breakdown for you. So those are all up on the site, all in the last 7 days. One of the most hardest working men in games media. And I think that covers it for all the article shout outs. Just going through the list, making sure I didn't inadvertently skip something. With that, we'll head into news. Not a lot of individual headlines here, but a handful to go through just to wrap out this podcast. This next one I have been kind of dreading. It's probably the biggest news story in the RPG space for the last week. But let me just go through and read the headline first. This is basically following up on the announcements from over the last month about the Xbox layoffs, about new projects being helmed in the Fallout series from the teams at Obsidian. And then this is over the last week, if you follow any games media at all, multiple different outlets have had chances to speak to Todd Howard, the chief executive of BGS. He's at least the director of Elder Scrolls 6. And he revealed that there is a new Fallout 5 in the works. This is the first time it's been referred to by a title with a number. We knew that they were working on a Fallout game, but now it's Fallout 5, talking about remasters for Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 in the works, and that Obsidian is working on a Fallout game, just reconverting that information. So that's the headline. Of course, the context around this headline is admittedly garbage. And I'm not the first person to say that. Lots of games media have talked about how this is um, jangling keys, saying, "Hey, don't think about the workers. Don't think about the layoffs. We got new Fallout games coming." And to me, that's just really a shitty feeling. That's just my personal opinion.
I feel bad
And
to do
then
this to you,
I,
but I You said there are remasters to Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. It's Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas.
Oh,
Obviously, that's not the story, but
good point. I was just reading all the numbers, so I just filled in. Oh, 5, 3, and 4. But you're right. It's 5, 3 in New Vegas, not 4. No, that's a good shout. But I wanted to call out just 2 articles, one article and one blog here that I feel like are good context. Aftermath had a kind of a response to this, calling Fallout didn't make itself. And then Hayes Madsen, he shared this publicly on his social media page, on his public blog, called "Video Game Studios Aren't Monoliths," and that talks not quite about Fallout, but it's about the same kind of the same space, the same damage control about this, about how after laying off nearly 2,000 people and 2,000 more going to be affected in the upcoming future, this whole like, don't worry, id's still working on Doom, or we're still working on Fallout, or there's still a Wolfenstein project. And it just feels like there's this just name dropping of game sequels and franchises are going to continue. Don't worry, we're still going to have. So yeah, but is that really the most important thing? To some people, it is, and that's kind of where I read a headline like this, and I just feel like,
Well, I'll go ahead and be direct because his article was actually like a response to an IGN article that was basically like, here's
Yep.
what each existing Xbox studio could work on to maximize their IP schedule or whatever. Kind of felt like, in the way that Hayes put it, a fantasy football draft. Like, what if we give Halo to Machine Games? And it felt gross. What are we doing?
yeah, it was a pretty fucking horrid article, but also emblematic of like kind of in some ways the state of like games, the big games media outlets, like because of so many layoffs that have happened since. It's like, okay, what's left? Now you just have
I
like
mean, and
these you have some people in these bigger game outlets have
you
had
have
a
this
history
guy
of
that's
bootlegging.
on IGN editorial who's always been like this, and I say that because he's run a Tesla podcast for years and still runs one. It's like least surprising thing in the world. It's like I know I have friends that owe a lot to him, so I'm not gonna be too mean, but it's like, come on, dude. Look in the fucking mirror. Jesus Christ.
They don't care. They don't care. I'm not going to be charitable to
and
this guy.
and just to like preempt some of there's so many like false gotchas, like, oh, would you rather Obsidian was shut down instead? Like, of course not. Like, that's when you hear stuff like that, like, at least they're working on video games still. It's like, yes, like, but we can want for more than that. Like, that's not as poignant of a counter argument and I've seen that argument online. Like, I'm not bringing that up as a straw man. Like, would you rather they be shut down? There's what does that mean? Where it's like, uh, well, damn it. It was something like, "What are you like? How are you feeling?" And like, "I'm feeling pretty good." Oh, so do you like war too? It's like, wait, what?
It's like a waiter. It's a waiter. Like, how's everything? It's great. Disgusted. Even war.
Yeah, that's what it was. And it's just like,
Yeah.
no, like there's lines here. It's like, yeah. So am I glad that Obsidian is not shut down? Sure. Am I glad that talented individuals at these studios that remain get the opportunity to still work on things? Sure. But then there's the context of they're missing a chunk of their colleagues that they might have had really good working relationships with, and that skill might not be 100% transferable. And games are made by teams of people, and many of those people are not going to have jobs in 5 months. Like, there's so many caveats that when you look at the headline and say, well, yeah, but it's like, well, no, that's not enough. And I can't genuinely muster any real excitement for this, knowing that. Like, imagine you're a person at id saying, don't worry, you're going to still work on whatever the follow-up for Doom is. Like, okay, you're now going to work on a higher workload because you have fewer, people working on it. And then you're going to work on that. And then you're going to be like, you're going to given your pink slip before the holidays or whenever. I don't even know if we know the scheduling. It's just like, oh, that sounds like an amazing environment to build games in.
It's one of those weird things, like especially with it's a very transparent way of like delivering the news, right? Where Asha gave her the public statement on layoff a grand total of 3,200 between that time of the announcement and up to the upcoming year, and there's just like layers to that as well. But also at the fall, like I don't mean to use this pun, but I kind of almost said it, and I'm just gonna say it, but like out of the fallout of that, the weird damage control from other studios under their helm, whether it was id going like, we've downsized to a point where we now have a similar studio size to when we created Doom 2016. It's like, okay, what the fuck does that mean? That's kind of like a weird statement to put out at the onset of a good chunk of your team being laid off and then trying to do damage control to the public. Like, don't worry, we still have maintained the same studio size as when we created Doom 2016, and now having Bethesda give a roadmap of their upcoming projects to reassure people, on top of already having pre-announced Elder Scrolls 6, just to keep people at bay and reassured that they were working on that as they were working on Starfield when that initial announcement was made. And now they've
done the same with Fallout 5, basically. It's basically the
yeah,
same thing.
it's just like I'm kind of morbidly curious if they're gonna have more of these other studios come out and do further damage control on reassuring the public, the gamers, that they're like, don't worry, guys, we're okay. And then the asterisk is Microsoft is we have to say this, so we're in Microsoft's good graces, Xbox's good graces, on this, and the most predictable outcome was, of course, the general average person that doesn't really look further into the games, like about the studios, the people who make the games that they love. They just want to play the video games. They just are nodding their head like, okay, as long as I get the games that I want to play. It's like it's frustrating, but like they aren't the problem. They aren't the ones causing this. So I'm trying to be charitable to them because they don't deserve the ire of like why I'm frustrated. They don't know. They're clueless. They don't want to know. Fine. It's more of, so as always, the base foundation between Microsoft and Xbox of like creating these conditions in the first place for this to be the consequence of it all, when there were warning signs well in advance to avert this.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm kind of looking forward to August, September, October. So not to stick my head in the sand, but just a bit, I want to champion games made by people, not games made by studios. And you might say like, is that a distinction without a difference? And I'm like, I think if I work hard enough, I can try to make that a distinction with a clear difference. Just realizing that again, I get Hayes's blog post really is a perfect title. Video game studios aren't monoliths. Like talent is lost when people are laid off. So just because whoever's studio's name is pushed on a splash screen doesn't mean it's the same. That comprises hundreds of individuals, if not thousands, in the bigger games. Like that's what I'm going to try to, at least going forward, if I can change my own personal tact, is to try to be more cognizant of that. Like actually, and I think like interviewing the talent behind these games, like Mikhail's done so strongly, and others interviewers. I think RPG Site in general has done a lot to try to platform the talent behind these games. We just talked about Veritas Tale, Witch in the Dark Castle, a couple weeks ago. So that's kind of how I'm going to try to have any sort of optimistic look in at this point forward, to try to champion the games that do manage to make it to the miracle of release in terms of who has putting these together.
Yeah, well, this I don't think this made our news headlines, but saying that reminded me of like that pretty excellent interview that Adam conducted with one of the people who worked on Zero Parades for Dead Spies. Like they
Yep.
worked on the narrative side on that. This person who's working on the narrative on that game was not responsible for, the studio, how the studio treated the original creatives of Disco Elysium, and they were just trying their best, at making this the best game they possibly can. And while that was, had great critical reception, unfortunately, that the studio had suffered some layoffs this past week because while that game was critically successful, it did not meet their performance sales expectations, so they had to unfortunately lay off people due to that weak performance in sales.
Yeah, and that is also just tricky because of all the context behind what happened between the releases of Disco Elysium and Zero Parades. But like none of the people being laid off were, I won't say none. Most of the people being laid off were not in those rooms making those decisions. They were just making art or dialogue or game logic or QA and did the best they could and made a game that was really well received and really well put together. Just didn't hit an internal target and had to be let go. And if there's any small sliver of credit, I will at least say that when Zaum, the current Zaum as it exists today, made that announcement, they said, "Hey, if you're hiring, please look at these people because they are talented." And it feels like the bare minimum they could do, but at least they hit that bar. Because that's not the bar that Microsoft
Yeah.
hit. I don't.
No,
They didn't. They did. So at least we'll take these tiny victories as we can. Even though calling it a victory is probably not even the best framing
Yeah.
there. But yeah, unfortunately, the headline there is Zaum did have to lay off. Was it like 32 people? It was like
around there.
a few dozen people because Zero Parades did not hit a sales target.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's the right place to be like, well, Zom's they've been mired in this muck since Disco Elysium, so they deserved it. Is that what you're implying? Like, and no one's, I think, said that explicitly, but just trying to be empathetic to those whose livelihoods were affected, and not trying to win like victory points about holding grudges or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's like I'm trying to like as I grow older, I try my best to not like consider like entire studios or teams as a blanket good, bad, my enemy, my friend type of deal. It's like no, these there are definitely many people who consist of these. They aren't like as he said on monolith. They are and the status of these um teams and collaborations fluctuate over time. They're not always going to be the same crew, you know. So you champion what you like and the people who made that happen, and and try to inform people of like things that you personally feel are not just, and try to convey to them, with humanity, obviously, like, hey, this situation isn't as great as you may, but be charitable to the person that like you're trying to educate and inform about that. Don't just blanket, just tell them they're a dumbass. Try to be charitable. Like, look, you may not care, you may not know. If you care enough, like I'll try to lay it out to the best of.
Yeah. Just a handful more headlines here. This one we didn't cover on RPG site, but it was covered over at Gamatsu. Gamatsu, of course, we shout them out a lot, but they're a great site. You should follow them. Sal is also one of the hardest, most working
Yeah,
men, if not the hardest working man in video games media.
yeah, I love Sal, man.
This
He's
is
he's awesome.
Yeah, this is not a series that I know well, but I know of. Langrisser Sea of Sword, a new entry in the Langrisser series that has been announced. Unfortunately, I can't find any clear details, but I was looking at some of the reception of this announcement, and basically people are saying like this series is stuck in gacha hell, or some similar sentiment. I forget. Langrisser, did it already have a mobile entry that was a gacha? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
it's called Langrisser Mobile. That was just the name of the
Okay.
game. And Chow, I'm glad you're here because I've had this in a tab since the beginning of this podcast, because that mobile game has had some crazy fucking collaboration events with certain IP that, like, you have your standard ones, like it actually had like Legend of Heroes, Trails of the Sky, and Trails of Cold Steel in it, and you have like more common ones like Sakura Wars and even like Overlord, like in Japan. But then you have like some crazy ones like Captain Commando, Tekkaman Blade, Guyver, the
Like,
Bio-boosted armor.
I don't think anyone here has seen Guyver except for us 90
I know
kids.
of it. I've never seen it. But yeah, I mean that Langrisser mobile game was like enjoyable for a certain amount of months. Like my friends and I played it for a little bit, but obviously, the
Yeah, I used
mobile
to play
game
it
mess.
too, but I dropped it because it was
Yeah,
just like it became a chore to play it. It took
it
like
did.
40 minutes
Yeah,
to like finish the dailies. I'm like, no,
yeah, it took way too
this isn't my
long.
thing.
And it had crazy power creep as well at a certain point. and the live PvP was like just fucking insane in it.
Yeah,
But
some people are galaxy brain trying to get through some like their teams. It's like, oh man, it's too much.
fuck that. But yeah, this new Langrisser one, like it's kind of I don't know. Well, there's been like recent Langrisser console games. Like they had like the re-releases of like or remakes of like the first 1 and 2 that
Yeah,
was
I
on
did review
modern
But it,
on
but it
on
had a
RPG
different
site.
artist, so people didn't like them or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yes, that's the main reason. And if it's like okay, it's like they offer you an option to use the old art, but if you use the old art, there is no like new CGs of the scenes that they redo with the new art. So it's just like, oh, that's kind of waste. But I do recommend if you want to check out a good strategy game. I think Langrisser 2 is one of the best strategy games ever made. It's like, it's up there.
And there's not really much more known about this new Langrisser Sea of Sword mobile game aside from it's coming to PC and mobile devices, and composer Yasunori Nishiki will be working on it. So hey, at the very least, you can look forward to good music to maybe probably not a good game, but you'll get a fucking awesome soundtrack out of it. And when I looked at the like Blackjack Studio, I don't know if are these the same developers as uh it's not Front Mission anymore. What was it called? The game that was initially announced as like the Front Mission mobile game, but then they had to back out of the Front Mission name because they
I
got
know
in
what you're
trouble with
talking about, but it's
Square
not
Enix.
coming to me.
I forgot what it's called.
Metal Storm?
Metal Storm. I think it was
Nakarashi?
Metal Storm. Yeah, Metal Storm Steam. What is it called? Was it? What did you say before that? Not Metal Storm, but
Well, Mekarashi?
Mekarashi. That's what it is. Yeah, and that got a Western release on Steam. Yeah, the same developers. Yeah, Blackjack
Oh,
Studio.
cool.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
who knows how it'll turn out. Kind of a weird announcement out of nowhere, but we'll see, I guess.
I'll check it out. I'll see how it goes. I
All right,
have
tell
good
me.
memories.
Yeah.
I have good memories of Langrisser, especially the second
Mhm,
game.
mhm.
And then it's like they come long ways. The franchise died with 5, so a Chinese company bought it, and then they just kind of do their own things with it. So maybe there might be a reboot to the franchise, but maybe I don't know. Maybe we go for another remake. I don't know. I want a remake of 3.
Well, okay, since they only did remakes of 1 and 2, like, are there any future Langrisser games worth it for remakes in your opinion that are like that you'd like to
I
see?
think Free has a very questionable thing about Free. Free basically has it's a prequel story, and it has a decent story, but the gameplay makes no sense. And I just wish they redo the game and redo the gameplay. Because
Hmm.
Free's
But yes,
gameplay,
3 remake.
yeah, just remake Free.
Mhm.
I also have beat 5 and 4 as well, but they're kind of like, they're good, but they didn't capture the same charm as 1 and 2, right? So, at
Would you
least
like to
that's my opinion.
see Captain Commando in this new mobile game?
Of course. Give me Baby Commando. Give me Baby Commando.
Would you like Pac-Man Blue in it?
We'll have some baby massacring some units. You're like, what the hell is that baby on that unit?
Uh,
I'll quick rapid fire through a handful of trailers here for some upcoming games. This first one's pretty cool. So, Final Fantasy Resonance. This is the new pixel art turn-based Final Fantasy game that is releasing in October. Showcased a new, basically a new. I'm not sure what they titled this trailer. It's just kind of like a
the Pixel trailer, they
intro
say.
concept. Uh,
Yeah, they call it the Pixel trailer. I think the I really want to play Final Fantasy Resonance. I'm very very excited for it. But I think the marketing, the way that they're framing the marketing of it is
I
weird.
think I'm going the same place as you. So this is
Yes,
what I was going to say. I
go for
first
it.
watched this trailer. I was at work or something, so I watched it mute, and I thought, "Wow, that game looks amazing!" Like I just watched just the art and like the animations, and thought this looks awesome. Then I watched it at home, like on a big TV, English. Maybe that was my mistake, and I like English dubs. And they're like, "What if Final Fantasy had stuck with pixel art?" And I'm just like, I don't need this weird like context.
They said the same thing in
altering.
Japanese. To be fair, so,
Yeah,
it's
but
not just English.
I just
one.
don't think I need that, and that doesn't make me more excited. I'm not saying it makes me less excited, but it's just a weird like. It doesn't have to be that. Just make it
Yeah,
its own thing for
the exact
2020 is not for
verbatim from
what
the
if.
from the trailer. Yeah, the exact verbatim was like, "What if Final Fantasy had continued to push the limits of pixel art?" Question mark. And that's like the way that they're marketing it, and it's like, I mean, I can see where they're coming from, but it's like it's kind of disrespectful to all the other Final Fantasies that came out after 6. Where it's just like
And not
they
only
were
that, like
fucking groundbreaking games too.
I think the game looks nice. Like I'm not saying it doesn't look nice, but if you've played Octopath, Suikoden, uh, any of the similar like this art style is not novel anymore. I'm not saying that means it's less worthwhile, but it's not like, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. Like, no, it looks kind of like Aiden Chronicle. It looks kind of like Suikoden. It kind of looks like Elliot. Like it's like, and is it cool that we're getting a turn-based Final Fantasy game in that style? Yes. But just when they're framed at like, what if? And like, oh well, I've played games like this in the last 6 years. Like, you don't need to frame it like that. But still looks amazing. Still looks cool. It's
Yes,
circled in my
yeah.
calendar for
I
October.
think a lot of us are here just gonna play it and probably if it turns out to be awesome, probably gush over it. It is
And I do like
makes me
that they
giddy.
don't put a ton of focus on the cameos. Like they're there, they're apparent. They're not hiding them, but they could have easily framed the trailer even worse. Been like, play as your favorite Final Fantasy heroes, and then like then splashes of all they like they're there, they're obvious, but I'm glad they don't make them like the center point, the center.
I like that there are other Vision characters besides them. I like that there's it doesn't have to be all about the cameos. It's like, hey, they
Yeah.
made a good chunk of original ones that they'll feature in this as well.
Mhm. We also got a new combat overview trailer for the upcoming Beast of Reincarnation. This one's early August, so this one's only 3 weeks away or so. This is the one human, one dog Sekiro like from Game Freak. Is that the quickest way to describe this? But so this combat trailer, I watched it. I was trying to think of like, okay, what's a key takeaway here to really explain it. But it kind of has it's like a third person action game with like the stamina souls, like some of the trappings that are very common these days, but does have like some real time with pause elements with how you engage the dog in combat and like have him engage with some skills. So that's really maybe like the one thing that I latch onto. I think it looks neat. I think the animations look cool. The art style's kind of interesting. I saw some people say like, hey, if this ends up being kind of like a more casual Sekiro like that sounds like something that could be really neat. It's kind of like a more
Yeah, I wonder because it is very very parry heavy focused. Like it's very
yeah.
like if you want to do anything, you better like parrying. And I'm like, man, I played
Mhm.
so many parry games.
Yeah, if you're sick of pairing over the last
God,
couple of years, then maybe
like
that
like
this might.
I just played Kazan and Wu Chang not too long ago, and they sure love parrying
Yeah.
in those games. So I was like,
Mhm.
sure, I hope I like this game. It's just like, but there's so many games that really want you to parry the other blade as
Mhm.
well. But I do think the real time the FF7 remake esque presentation, if you want to use the
Oh, that's a good
wolf,
way to
the skills
describe
of the
it.
wolf,
Yeah.
yeah, um,
It's very similar to
the
that. Yep.
it's very yeah the way that they freeze frame the image as you're scrolling, very emblematic of that, and I hope the synergy between that is neat.
And then also a trailer for the upcoming Shadow of the Road. This is that alternate history tactical game set in feudal Japan being published by Owlcat, developed by Another Angle Games. This is an environmental trailer. Uh, I think this one looks neat, but I think Adam, I forget if you framed it in social media or on Discord. At this point, it just feels like we've had so many look-ins at this game that I'm like, didn't they already show this? Like at some point, these trailers are starting to like each individual trailer. I think looks neat, but they're also starting to blend together at some point. I guess this one does show
As
some
we
like more like. Go ahead.
as we've established, you can never have too much marketing. um,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
I don't like it's one of those things like I'm mentally checked out in terms of like I know I'm gonna play this game. I want to play this game. It looks cool to me. I'm just mentally checked out of all the marketing because I already know I'm gonna play this. But it never like it never hurts, right? I mean, if you always go back to Atlas with the Atlas method, where like they're gonna release a billion fucking trailers of Persona 4 Revival. They released a billion freaking trailers of every other recent game that they had in the last 5 years. Like we always point to like the Soul Hackers 2 situation of like when people say, "Oh, that didn't get enough marketing, that's why it didn't do well." It's like they released a billion trailers of that, and you just didn't notice.
It also had like bi-weekly streams. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Shadow of the
So
Road is one of those games that is slated for 2026, but doesn't have a clear window unless I'm missing something. So it's like, okay, they're gonna have to squeeze it in at some point. But we'll see when that lands. I'm gonna guess a late October release, but that's just a guess.
I think December. That's my.
Ah. Here's a small little update that I just think is kind of fun. Octopath Traveler 0 has a new update that has been announced and slated for 2026. With more details to come later once they announce the release date for the update. This is just kind of a little bit of fan service. So adding some arena fights to the town arena, and adding a new resident, which is very clearly not a spoiler. Like it's a silhouette of Elliot from Adventures of Elliot being a resident in Wishvale and Octopath Traveler 0. So very common just to see, obviously two games that have similar pedigrees kind of cross collaborating in that way. So I think this is just a fun little update. I could see myself logging into my Octopath Traveler 0 or booting it up and be like, all right, I'll get Elliot in my town and I'll make him man the arena or something like that. So just
They
want
should make
to
Elliot playable. I don't know what he
Yeah, maybe.
used, but they should make it. No, and have the fairy talk when he's in battle with you.
There you go. Just a handful of release dates or other dates to talk about to wrap this up. Fantasy action RPG Lunarium is releasing on PC on July 29th. This is from developer Lunarium, so their first title project is like self-titled after themselves. This is kind of like I think this is like a Hades like, or at least it's got that same kind of isometric view, which I know is not unique to Hades, but similar art style as well, as I think why I'm drawing that connection in my head. Expedition Samurai. This is a game that I'm pretty interested in because the miraculous, nature of which the Expedition series can continue under new developer Campfire Cabal is going into early access on August 7th. So I'm really interested, but I'll almost certainly wait for the full release. So I hope early access is successful for that team to get
I
that
should really
series
play
back off the ground.
Expeditions Rome. I think it's in my library. I should really get around.
It's cool. I only listed this one next, even though it's not an announcement, really, because it takes place chronologically in September. Final Fantasy XIV Mobile, which was announced and released in, I hope I get these details right, it was announced, released in China, had some general statements about a planned global launch. Well, the Chinese version will end service in September, on the September 30th, and the global version is canceled. So no longer getting a widespread release for a mobile rendition of Final Fantasy XIV.
EOS. It's in the game.
Yep.
Um,
I forget if this was stated specifically somewhere or if it was just conjecture, but just they didn't get they weren't able to catch the whales. They couldn't be monetized in a way that I guess saw the returns they were hoping for. So they're not going to proceed forward.
yeah, I mean that's
Again,
this. I really wonder what's gonna be the lasting cost of this, because this project felt like it took many years to come to fruition. Probably took a lot of
They
money.
also
Well,
have some quality of life that the
yeah. Well,
actual FF game has.
at least Square Enix didn't lose any money off of this because they didn't develop it and they were getting licensing money off of it. So, as far as they're concerned, it doesn't matter that it
It's
failed.
it's mainly Tencent that's getting the brunt of this loss. But yeah, I mean, kind of. It how long did it last? Like when did it come out in Japan, in China?
Like a year, I think.
A year,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Wow.
I
looking it
remember
up.
some
Let's see.
YouTubers were like playing and telling us about the game.
Yeah, I
but,
know Mr.
ugh.
Happy, prominent 14 content creator, played a decent amount of this, and actually he made a video about the state of it a few weeks ago, straight up saying that this was going to happen soon because, and he waited for a bit because like the official like website for the Western version of FF14 Mobile had been like just dead. You could not visit the link, and it wasn't like a momentary lapse. It's just been dead for like several weeks at this point. So we knew this was coming. It was just a matter of time.
It looks like a June 2025, so just over a year, released in China. This is just a quick update. Castlevania Belmont's Curse. We knew it was launching on October 15th already, but they originally announced that the Switch 2 version went come later. Konami and Evil Empire announced that the Switch 2 version will also release on October 15th. So Castlevania Belmont's Curse on all of its platforms will launch on the same date.
I will be there day one, even though it's squeezed between Dragon's Dogma 2, Dark Arisen, and Tales of Eternia remaster.
It's
Emberville. Oh, go ahead, James. Yeah,
just gonna say, I don't think there's more than like a week that's gonna go by for the rest of the year where there's not a game, like a new game I want to play. Because like next week is Splatoon Raiders. Week after that is Village in the Shade. After that is Beast Reincarnation, so on and so forth.
Your backlog is always compiling. So when someone mentioned that it's not a 100-hour RPG, I am like, whew, that feels great.
I think I'm on track. I'm on track for fully getting all the endings again on my reread of Steins Gate before Steins Gate reboot comes out on August 20th.
Ah, fuck! I need to reread Steins Gate.
I've been working on it behind the scenes.
Rip.
Maybe I'll reread Steins Gate on my Vita copy. Maybe that's what I'll do.
I got my Suzuha ending, and then I think I'm almost to the Ferris ending, and then I'm close. I'm getting there. I'm on my way already. I'm getting the endings.
Just two more headlines here. Farming action adventure RPG Emberville, looks like a Stardew Valley like, is launching on Steam in early access on October 27th. They did also announce the some voice actors, and some of these are names I recognize, like Brianna White, Ben Starr, Jennifer English, Matt Mercer. So pretty loaded
Harry
voice
McIntyre?
cast for Emberville. So that's pretty cool. I don't actually recognize that one offhand.
That's Noah
What do you do?
from Xenoblade 3.
Oh, Noah. Awesome. That's cool.
Sorry, but since you mentioned it, as a spin-off of this, there was a new announcement from that upcoming action RPG Tides of Annihilation that mentioned that Jennifer English had to step down from the role of the main protagonist in that due to health reasons, and they are currently already have recasted that role and are working on the re-recording that lines for that protagonist due to Jennifer English's stepping down from that role, and will like within the next month or so, I believe, during Gamescom with that. So, obviously prioritize your health always.
And I did see that headline, and my off the cuff reaction is that they've already announced, I believe, that the new actress is starting recording lines, but they haven't announced who that is yet, which I think is smart because it doesn't bury one news story with the other. They say, "Hey, we no longer have Jennifer English. We wish her the best, just for her health," and then they can later say, "We're glad to bring on whoever is doing the voice," so that they don't.
Yeah, giving them like a heads up now. It's like it's smart, very smart.
Yeah. And then the last one, this is one that Kite put up, and I don't recognize this game from its original release, but the SuperVanoman collection is releasing on Switch, PlayStation, and PC on December 10th. These are classic Japanese games from the early 1990s, and two of the ones that he focused in on were Songmaster and Feta, the Emblem of Justice, which were Super Famicom games from 1992 and 1994. So
cool. Yeah, it's from
playable on modern platforms soon.
Yeah.
And that's it for the headlines I had on this episode of the Tetracast. So hopefully that's the last bit of sad news, but I know that it won't be with the Microsoft related stuff. But some cool announcements for some upcoming games. And as we've said, we've got a lot to look forward to in the upcoming weeks and months. Really awesome to have James and others kind of lead a discussion about Kyoto Xanadu. Hopefully we'll have some more information on the English release of that in the upcoming weeks and months. In the RPG space, what do we have coming up? Because in 2 weeks we'll have Beast of Reincarnation. No, actually we won't quite yet, because 2 weeks will be August 1st. So in 3 weeks, Beast of Reincarnation. So I'm not 100% sure what's going to be on the docket for the back half
Oh,
of July.
that game Dragon Sword Awakening, I guess, is coming out next Thursday. I might pick it up. I'm not sure yet. It is that game that I will admit sort of looks like Genshin Impact, and it sort of looks like a gacha game at first, but it's one of those games that was because of the fallout with their publisher, they decided to make it a real game, and so it's actually like a normal RPG now with no gacha mechanics. Um, and it seemed to have like good feedback from the demo from people who played it. So I was like, maybe I don't know yet. I'm thinking.
The Switch 2 edition of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and I think they're adding a blade and something else. Like, so maybe I don't know if anyone plans to boot up their
I
Xenoblade
do,
Chronicles
but I don't know if
file.
that's next week. Is that next week?
It's not next week. It's July 30th,
Oh,
so it's 2
I
weeks from
do
now.
wanna. Yeah, I do
So
want to boot up my old Xenoblade 2 copy because I think my Xenoblade 2 copy is like primed, like it's ready for a new game plus. Um, I need to.
it's like perfect landing spot for that. Yeah,
Yeah, because I need to see that game running at 60 FPS and with like not shitty resolution. Hopefully,
yeah.
that'd be
You,
awesome.
you can run around Gourmont at a frame rate higher than 30, 20,
I
and
might
a resolution higher than 500p.
I might die of shock if I see it, but I have to know. That is probably the Xenoblade game that I am most curious about on the Switch 2 version.
Yeah, because Xenoblade 3 actually ran and looked pretty good compared to 2. Not perfect, of course. Like, but then its addition is also like this interesting tactical mode, like overhead thing, which is a little less like, huh, I don't know what that's going to be like, but that'll be there
Yeah,
later.
yeah. This one is like you can now play the mercenary quest that you deploy your blade on. It's like that's fucking weird. You didn't have to do that, but cool. You know.
So do give a look through all the different interviews and features that we talked about up on the site at rpgsite.net, including the GOG interview, the Emmy Evans interview, all of the performance features that Mikhail puts together. The Culdcept review should be live imminently. So all those are up on the site at rpgsite.net. Join the Discord, discord.gg/rpgsite. Search for RPG Site on your favorite social media network. Just search for RPG space site, and you should be able to find us. If you like this podcast, leave us a like, leave us a rating, leave us a comment. We'd like to see those. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Tetracast. So until you hear from us next time, stay safe, take care, and we'll talk to you all later.
It's also that Star Ocean 30th anniversary stream soon. Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.